What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering. We've got two videos today. I want to start out by covering some Anthem news, and some new information has come my way from insiders at EA that have a proven track record with me that would tell you that Anthem is not dead, that Bioware is in fact beefing up staff internally to fix things. But I want to cover a couple different articles around Anthem today to get the day started as my cat dances around behind me whining. But before Anthem's story receives any DLC, Bioware needs to address its obsession with the male ego. That's right, Jason Coles. Anthem has a problem with male ego, and it's dragging its storytelling down. Now, if you are a player of Anthem, I would say the reason for your playing starts and ends with gameplay, loot. The story in Anthem is weak, practically non-existent. So to nitpick that seems absurd. The DLC, fixing the loot, these are things that Anthem needs to do long before they need to worry about their non-existent story. Now, Bioware is slowly turning Anthem around. I disagree. That process certainly hasn't been easy for the studio, but it's at least making good on its commitment to continue supporting the game. In an effort to get Anthem where it needs to be, the studio was forced to admit that it wasn't going to achieve all of its Act 1 calendar goals, pushing back the introduction of elements such as Cataclysm, Mastery System, Guilds, and Phase 2 of the Legendary Mission. So essentially everything, along with other highly requested features from the community. Bioware understands that its endgame content isn't where it needs to be, which means it can't possibly begin to take steps forward to Anthem's evolution. An undercurrent to all this would be that we shouldn't expect to see any story DLC for a little while. And to be perfectly honest, that's probably not a bad thing. Before Bioware even thinks about expanding the story of Anthem, it should really consider looking at the flailings of the base game's narrative and the instances of male ego that drives the story forward. Toxic masculinity, which ultimately works to the detriment of the story's core development and resolution. Whew. Yikes. That's right. Gotta love all that is social justice around video games. Now, if you've played Anthem through by now, you should be aware that it has 3 ego-driven characters, all of which are integral to the story, driving it through its most expected signposted twists and turns. If you have yet to complete Anthem, well then get prepared for a good number of spoilers. When hubris replaces common sense, I'm going to try to skip over some of the spoiler-related stuff. Despite being exposed to the Anthem of creation, something has driven many others mad. Faye remains one of the most reasonable characters in the game. She sits in stark contrast to Haluk, who couldn't see past his own pride, betraying by crushing insecurity. Sadly, Haluk isn't the only instance of male ego derailing Anthem's story. Just look at Owen. He's guilty of a different sin of the ego, where his downfall was in his pride. Owen struggles to confront his crushing insecurity. Owen starts off as one of the most charming and earnest characters of Bioware's ever written. Initially, you might worry he's going to get annoying, but it's done so well that it never reaches that point. He makes jokes, he's carefree, and he is your partner. He's your cipher. His job is to handle things like hacking, tracking, and cracking. He is an integral part of you being able to do your job and is literally a huge component. He doesn't care. He wants to be a hero. He can't accept that he isn't ready. The idea of being a cipher isn't acceptable to him. He thinks that anything other than being on the front line isn't good enough for him. So, of course, people's flaws, it sounds like, egos, overzealousness, things like that, things that are very real emotion, that is, of course, the problem with Anthem. Not all of the obvious other issues, but, you know, hopefully they can fix their male ego problems. But remember when Anthem talked about, I had put out a video that heads rolled at Anthem. In fact, I found out that that is not the case. They are, in fact, adding additional staff to Bioware to fix many problems with the game. And to the Anthem community, I would say this is good news. I'm not sure why they haven't publicized this fact, and I'm going to get into that in just a minute. Anthem community manager opens up about Bioware's silence around the game. In an open and very candid thread on Twitter, Anthem's community manager, Jesse Anderson, gave players some insights into why the studio has been so close-lipped on the game's future. In it, he let players know that sometimes when there are bigger discussions going on internally, I have to put communication on hold to avoid saying inaccurate things. Anthem's comments shed light on some of the missteps taken by the team, but ultimately emphasizes the team's willingness to improve communication on Anthem's future content. Now, if we go to this, the plan was to have the stream go out the week before so we could share the new Stronghold with the patch notes. But that freaking cable that was cut made my life hell. New info would have been shared as originally planned. And when the chest was opened up on stream, I almost say purple rain because I didn't realize, I wasn't sure how people would react, and I froze. He's referring to the stream where they're in a stronghold and he opens 4 epics, which is, again, another issue with the Anthem. I don't know why they don't just give players the loot they want. This is something so strange. Internally, they must... Here's one logical reason I think they're holding back loot. And it's possible. It's entirely possible it's incorrect. But this is the only real thing that comes to mind. They're worried if they give in to players and give players what they want in terms of loot, they will get what they want and stop playing the game. I mean, I know that seems like, well, duh, but I don't understand why. If you watch the Twitch stream, the entire chat was like loot, 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 loot. It was just loot spam the entire time. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, imagine like running a restaurant, a booming restaurant where you have lines out the door every night, and every single person that left walked out and said, man, I really wish you had pretzel buns. I would come back, but I'm never going to come back until you get pretzel buns. Something so easy to do, to change the bun that your burger's on. And you wouldn't do it. And then eventually you're about to go out of business and you look back and you're like, what went wrong? Well, I mean, I just don't understand why they don't give them what they want. I mean, you can always make better loot, right? If you have all this, well, maybe they don't have the loot designed. I mean, just give these kids what they want. Anderson ended his thread on a positive note, letting players know that where he is able, more regular information drops will come in the future during these streams. He also highlighted his enjoyment of other loot shooters such as Destiny and The Division 2, and reminded readers that we can all coexist. Let's not spread hate. Well, I think that's mostly because The Division 2, while a games as a service, launched to a relatively happy crowd. I mean, The Division 2, a game that I've played for about 30 hours now, while I will agree that the story, in my opinion, isn't enough to keep me wanting to come back. I had very few technical issues. I had some, but very few. The loot was interesting, exciting. The build-outs were fun. The gameplay was fun. The bosses did get a little repetitive, and I think they could do better with that, and they could do better with more different types of enemies. But for the most part, The Division 2 launched and was very good. So, maybe they're just saying, like, well, stop comparing us because we always look worse than the other ones. I mean, The Division 2 was great. Destiny, didn't launch perfectly either. But, I just still continue to be baffled as to why Bioware won't give the players what they want. But remember when this original post came out where Bioware was hiring a senior system designers around loot, a system designer around item creation design, and a system designer around store and reward pipeline. I originally thought that this was going to be positions that were replacing people that had done poorly. That's incorrect. My sources inside of EA tell me that these are additional jobs and that Bioware is not giving up on Anthem. Now, that doesn't mean that EA isn't going to cut the cord, as Layman Gaming covered this morning. I don't know how a company cuts the cord. If you look at Fallout 76, they continue to provide updates. They continue to try and fix the game. They continue to try and please the customers, because I think if you just cut it off, if you just walk away, you're talking about millions of people. I mean, this Anthem subreddit alone has 192,000 members. All right. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people. And this is just the Anthem subreddit. Meaning, you know, there's probably 10 times this number of players out there, maybe 20 times, 30 times. And you have hundreds of thousands of people just hoping this game gets better. And, you know, it's easy to come from a place of where I am in a position where I cover video games and I can just buy another game. I can just move on because I can write it off as for the channel, or because I have generous backers, they get me games or gift me games. But a lot of people, you know, they don't have the cash to be buying like new games every 2 or 3 new games every month. They buy one game, and that's got to, the plan is for that game to entertain them for many months. Games as a service is a fraud. There was a great video put out that I'm going to link. Some of you had asked me to link it. I'll link it in the pinned comments about how games as a service is a fraud. It's a long video, but it's very well put together, and I want to give a shout out there. And by the way, if you're not already following me on Twitter or minds.com, it's twitter.com/thequartering or minds.com/thequartering if you want to use that. I'd love to have you follow me there. I'm shadow banned on Twitter, but it's still the best way to get tips to me and give me articles to look at. And this is, I think, good news for Anthem players, but the question is it too little, too late? I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.